right.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the October meeting for the Rappahannock-Rapidan Regional Commission. If we could all stand for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm guessing we have a one. All right, looking at the agenda, are there any changes to the agenda that was distributed? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Public comment?
Yes.
Members of the public.
I'm aware of everybody in the room.
Okay. Presentations and special recognition. Today, we have an update on the Regional Transportation Collaborative from Kristen Peraza, Director of Regional Mobility Programs and Partnerships. Kristen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Giving you guys a little bit of your time today. So I'm just gonna kind of go back over a quick overview of what our program does and then give you some information about what we've done over the past year and what we're working on. Get this clicker over. So our program is actually split into two facets and kind of two entities. We are the Regional Transportation Collaborative, and that's our partnership and stakeholder name, our grant name, and on the books, that's us. But to the public, we are the Trusted Community Partnership. And so we have this SEAL program that we actively run. That kind of half circle is what we pair along with all of our stakeholders and partners to create a visible connection in the community to the programs and the partnerships that we are cultivating and developing services through. So you'll see this on a lot of different things, on vehicles, park benches, materials. People have it on their shirts and on their hats and badges and emblems, and the list goes on and on and on. And so we are actively working on that program. That was something that was developed in partnership with AARP back in 2021, and it has continued to grow throughout the years. And so you'll see this and you'll hear TCP, but that's what that stands for. And it's just our public version of the collaborative. Our primary program that we run through the collaborative is a mobility center. And we have a one call, one click center. It's the first in Virginia. There are now two in the state, and the second is replicated off of our model in the TJ-PDC region. When someone calls into our mobility center, they can access all of these different services. The services are primarily funded for adults, older adults and people with disabilities, but we serve everyone. We follow the livable concept. Community concept from AARP, and then we also follow No Wrong Door, the 211 connection. So everyone can call in and ask us for transportation supports, and we'll try to connect them. Obviously, the most resources we have are for that target audience, but we try to help anyone that calls in. And then we have, again, that split entity. So we have a set of partner resources as well. So anyone who's involved with the collaborative or the Trusted Community Partnership has access to all of these resources too. So we work really, really hard on strengthening and providing support, infrastructure support, service support, funding, resources, all kinds of expertise, grant writing, services to our small nonprofits in the region that are providing some kind of transportation support. And that is meant to help them kind of weather the storm, not be so susceptible to fluctuations with federal and state funding changes, local funding changes, and just the whole variety of changes that come with trending needs in the community. It allows them to be more responsive to what they see going on with their clients they're trying to serve. And so this is an ongoing initiative that these services fluctuate based on our partners' needs. We operate on a 5-year cycle. So we are halfway to our decade, basically. We've been running this program for 6 years and it's been going very, very well. We've had a lot of growth. We are in FY26, which is implementation for us. We are implementing in-house programming, which is a change for us, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But every year we are switching our focuses and really trying to stay on this cycle so that we can maintain what we grow and that we can strategically implement growth over time. So it's not just growing just to grow, but it really is targeted and trying to produce some outcomes that we want to see and prioritize in our community. So this fiscal year began for us on October 1st this year, and we are moving to transition all of our services in-house. We have hired a set of staff for this to happen and moved all of our operations to be updated and kind of very efficient and in line with the commission standards and kind of the data and information that Jessica and I have collected over the last few years. And so far, so good. We are only just a few weeks in, but that transition is going well. And what this really means is instead of rerouting out about $500,000 to another provider to run the call center, we run that directly now through the commission. And it gives us a lot of opportunity to be responsive to changing needs of the community, to what you all see as problems in your areas, and to really focus without having a lot of barriers that come with passing through funding to other agencies and following their guidelines and their priorities, for example. This is fiscally neutral, so we are no longer passing that money through. It doesn't cost the commission any extra money. All of the money is covered through our grant purposes, and so we work really hard to be very diligent about our budgeting for that. So I'll tell you a little bit about our data over the last year. Through the Mobility Center, we have documented over 16,000 calls just in 1 year. So that is well over 1,000 calls in a month, and that accounts for about a third of those calls being coordination calls back to another entity or to a partner to try and organize some kind of service. And out of those calls, we service 9,000 rides to medical appointments. So the bulk majority of what we are doing is older adults, people with disabilities who need to get to medical appointments. But we also have a pretty high focus on reducing social isolation, trying to connect people to opportunities to engage with their community and take part in activities that are happening in events throughout the region. We also partnered with 11 human service agencies to hold gas cards for the public to provide subsidy transportation. This is funded through the PATH Foundation, and then we partner with free clinics, DSS offices, public libraries to hold those funds so that they can be accessed really easily by the clients who need them. And then we also refer directly to PATH's Community Link initiative, which is a primary funded initiative for the PATH Foundation. They provide wraparound service connection and kind of a case management support to individuals who have more than one type of need. So a lot of times people are calling about transportation to us first, but it really connects to a greater need. I need to get to the grocery store because I haven't had food in weeks. I need to get to see my doctor because I lost my medication and I can't remember where I put it. And so you have memory issues, you have issues with food stability. And so the PATH Foundation is a really great connection for us because we connect our calls seamlessly through a ticket system. There's no emailing back and forth. And then the representative from the Community Link program can call that person back and walk through all kinds of different resources that they know about at the Community Link program. They also have access to that magical PAC money. So if there's these unique situations, they know how to find funds to help make a difference for those individuals. Part of our effort to provide more supports to our partners is building on education and training opportunities. We provided 300 staff with about 15 opportunities this past year to get involved in webinars, travel to events, and take part in education opportunities that had to do with transportation or serving the unique needs of the audiences that they were interacting with. We also traveled to Arizona, Oklahoma, and California to stay on top of the best practices that are happening across our country and kind of keep our model at the forefront of that. A lot of our partners that we are engaging with also provide different types of services that are not necessarily a ride to the store. Instead, they will bring that person's order from the store to them. And at times that's way more efficient than putting that person in the car and taking them to the store and spending several hours while they pick up their ingredients and then taking them back home. At times, this really serves a great purpose in eliminating extra cost and trying to keep those expenses down and provide a lot more accessibility to older adults in the community. This is a breakdown of the percentages by county. And you can see here that Culpeper and Fauquier make up the bulk of the transportation requests that were received the last year. And then I have that compared to the population size. If you look at the population size of Culpeper, for example, to its request, it's pretty in line with what we see there. But then in Fauquier, the amount of requests per the population is quite low. And that points to a lot of different things. I think in Fauquier, it points probably to the different types of accessibility that people have, their capacity to be able to lean on networks and their own capacity financially to address their needs, privately perhaps with contract supports. But for example, in Madison County, I would say, or excuse me, Rappahannock County, I would say that the difference probably points to maybe a lack of engagement with the community. It's hard to reach that community. It's hard to pass along information about new supports and services. So maybe that to me would in my analysis would point to, I need to focus on Rappahannock next year. I need to focus on trying to send more information about what we have available and try to engage with that population that needs these services.
Do you have any insight as to if there are any particular districts in Fauquier County that drove that number?
Yeah, I actually have this information nailed down to zip codes, so I can pull out towns
Okay.
within each area and I can break that down and send it out via email as well. I also have this on mapping capacity as well, so I can see little pockets, little hubs of where people are coming from and where they're going to. It's pretty interesting, the information that you can kind of pull out from that. There are a lot of requests that come out of the Bealton area, for example, to go to other providers in the town of Warrington. There's also a lot of our unfulfilled rides that we're not able to provide are from in town to in town, which like in a town like Fauquier or Warrington, you're wondering, why is that? That's silly. We have public transit, we have on demand, and then we have volunteers. Why do we have so many people who can't travel within the town? That points to a lot of different limitations. There's limitations with public transit. If somebody wants to go to the grocery store, for example, they can only take 2 bags on public transit. They have to be willing to ride on that schedule and maybe wait around for the transit route if it's late or not dependable. There's also volunteers are passionate about serving greater needs. So they're looking at these really hard rides and they're taking rides that are 2 or 3 hours long versus taking a quick trip across town and giving a 15-minute ride to somebody. And so you're just like, oh, this is awesome. But at the same time, we're missing these really easy ones that we could provide. So I have a lot of breakdown of all of that as well, really comprehensive data. Sometimes it's invisible. I don't. Had one more. There. These are the rides by what we were able to fulfill and what we weren't able to fulfill in each county, and then how that compares to the amount of volunteers that we have available in each of those counties. So this, if you look at like Madison, that's kind of the glaring one. There are only 3 volunteer drivers in Madison County right now. We've had a fluctuation of that. It's gone up and down. If anyone here knows Billy Tanner, he has pretty much driven all of those rides. He won an award this year at our volunteer recognition for driving well over 10,000 miles and providing 500 hours of volunteer service just to this. And if you know Mr. Tanner, he's involved in a million other activities too. So I don't know where he finds the time.
Okay, Deanna, just say that.
So he has a double full-time job with us, volunteering. And you can just see that basically what this is telling you in Madison is that each driver would have had to have driven 100 times last year to fill the need. And you can see the kind of comparison to each location, and again, this goes back to analysis that we look at every year, and us, refocusing funding and staffing efforts to try and address the amount of volunteers that are available in each location and help our smaller nonprofits build up those volunteer capacities. That brings me to our new hire, Mallory Grady, which many of you already probably know.
You
Which-
ain't hired.
Yes. We are very excited to bring Mallory back onto our team at the commission. And we designed a position called this community engagement liaison for Mallory to take advantage of her strengths in particular, with her ability that she knows a lot of different people around the community. She has very creative concepts and she knows how to organize and coordinate programs. So we're excited to have Mallory impact that data that was on the last screen and help us engage and reach more volunteers and build up our capacity to serve more people. So the data from 2025, we have over 12,000 rides documented by volunteers. And we have tracked 10,000 volunteer hours and 147,000 miles driven. And that is an equivalent of almost $500,000 for free that's provided to the region. And I always like to show you guys how much that would have cost you. So if we had paid a typical Uber Lyft system, it would have cost 1.2 million. But that would have been if you lived in Culpeper or Northern Virginia, for example. We don't. So in our rural area, it would have cost you all $2.4 million to contract that same transportation that we got for free. So a lot of my program is dedicated to supporting volunteers, to helping these small nonprofits with recognizing them, providing appreciation, providing them with supports, trying to get them gas card reimbursements through the state, trying to find any kind of way that I can to support them with education, training, whatever I can do to try and build up those volunteers and then keep them, because this is really, really valuable, very, very valuable. And we have a recognition event every year to celebrate them. We just finished our 5th one a few weeks ago, and we had over 300 attendees. And we welcome you guys anytime you want to come to that as well. Every year we send out that invitation to this board just to bring your support and show these volunteers how much this really means to our community, because it's beyond this. Of course, there's a lot of anecdotal data and amazing things that comes out of that volunteer service.
So was this your last one?
Yes, sir. You have in front of you our program from that event as well. So this is just some of the other projects we've worked on this year. We hosted that event out in Culpeper at the Old House Winery. We have joined with Encompass to add a 10th vehicle to our shared volunteer vehicle program. That's a program where we utilize state-owned vehicles. They are partially owned by the state of Virginia and partially owned by Encompass, and then they are funded through us. So it's a very convoluted relationship, but it serves its purpose because we provide the funding. We're able to leverage those vehicles and share them among our partners. So we have 9 programs that share those vehicles and drive them across the region. They're all wheelchair accessible. So it provides those small nonprofits with the ability to use those vehicles to provide transportation without having to have the infrastructure to own and maintain a vehicle themselves, or to find the money to be able to cover expenses like that. So we leverage those state vehicles. They are actually funded through a federal program through the FTA. And the FTA is very pleased with our use of those vehicles and how we share that asset. And I think that's a surprising thing for a lot of people to hear, because if you say, I shared a federal asset, people are like, what? What did you do? And the FTA has been very happy with us. They asked us to present several times this year on that model, because it is a great use of their investment into this asset. It's now being driven by many different programs and being used many, many times, instead of just being used by one program that owns it in its own small capacity. We also developed a new PIN program, which is in that green brochure. This is another effort to try and recognize volunteers' contribution to our community. So you may see out in your community at different times volunteers out and about with these enamel pins that we have designed for their service. Like I said, Billy Tanner was given one for 10,000 hours this year. We have other ones where they're provided, recognized as champions for the year, or their contribution to the community, or they've gone above and beyond and they're called out. And it's just a engaging way to recognize the volunteers. And so you may see that as you are out in the community. Some of our other noteworthy things, we are still in an ongoing mentorship with TJPDC. They replicated our model and have a second call center in Virginia. We provide ongoing guidance for them. We help them build new partnerships for their program, and then we provide them with technical tools. So they use our technology to manage their entire program. That comes at no cost to us because our technology is paid for. So it costs me nothing to share that and use that as a partnership leveraging tool. We have also given our model demonstration all over the country. We had visits from Southwest Virginia Area Agency on Aging, and then Arrowhead Regional Development Commission from Duluth, Minnesota came here to see our model, see our mobility center, how we design that, our technology, and our collaborative, what we've done to leverage our growth over the last 5 years. And we've also presented it at several national conferences, and then also done virtual demonstrations with a few different states. We were selected as the Association of Mobility Managers host for the 2027 National Conference. We hope to fulfill that role in between Culpeper and Fauquier. That's our preliminary plan. We were selected by the FTA, as I mentioned earlier, to demonstrate our model through 2 Easter Seals webinars that hosted 300 applicants trying to learn about our use of funding, our creative implementation of services, and the way that we've leveraged resources for partners. We were just selected by AARP to re-demonstrate this seal that I showed you earlier and tape a kind of a commercial, for lack of a better word, about our program for their kind of national update. They have a new CEO who has targeted us as one of 4 across the country that they want to highlight as a success story for their investment. We were also used by Texas A&M Research Institute for a program study. We were selected by Texas DOT as their best practice model for their implementation of their new mobility management program for their state. And we were also published, we were asked to write a blog for a national publication for Easter Seals as well, about our kind of strategic model, the way that we put all of our pieces together, so to speak, to address mobility needs in the region. This year, we have $1.3 million just about to start this fiscal year a few weeks ago. 75% of that comes from the state of Virginia, and the rest comes from the PATH Foundation. We draw over 21% of the state's investment into rural transportation, and the state invests in 13 programs, and we pool 20% of their investment. So it's really exciting to be given that, faith in by the state to invest in programs that matter and provide mobility management supports that are really helping our community access their services. And so we don't take that lightly. We put a lot of effort into using that money very strategically. It mostly covers staffing, but the staffing is spread out among a lot of different organizations, not just at the commission. And then we use the PATH money to really provide us with the creative freedom to address issues and to be responsive. We have a lot of creative initiatives that we use the PATH money for. For example, one is Donate It Forward, which is a program that provides volunteers who drive the opportunity to have a mileage reimbursement, but instead of them getting a check to themselves directly, they're able to pick another nonprofit that they're passionate about in the region, and that money goes to them on their behalf. And so that's been very exciting for some of our volunteers who don't want to do this for money and who are involved with a lot of different organizations. I think that's it. That brings me up to date with you guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
I have a question. Can you go back to the FY25 data, please? So here RTC, but in Madison, I see different transportation rolling around. So I'm familiar with Encompass. They kind of have a fleet, and they make that available to local government too if you sign an agreement. So you have that. I think we have Foothills. I've seen Valtran. So are those all names that are part of the RTC? Okay, because I'm just thinking when, being exceptionally loud, I'm sorry. We probably- Folks usually come to our board meetings, so, how can Madison push out the messaging? I mean, I know DSS are wonderful folks, Valerie and her team. But what can we do at the county level? Because a lot of folks may not go to those places, but they'll come to a board. They love looking at tables, whatever's laying in front. So they'll see Voltrans or they may see Foothills.
Right.
But I was gonna ask you on that data, is that looking at one of those specifically, or does that capture all those?
This
Different
does not
ride services.
capture public transportation, but it captures all volunteer transportation. I have some information also on transportation that I've kind of referred back to public transit. Although that's about 5% of what we do, because the route doesn't match quite right, or there's some other factors, like, for example, I had someone who was getting a lot of rides and piqued my interest, and I asked my staff, I said, why is she getting so many rides? She lives on public transit. Why didn't you put her on the bus? And they said, she's 93 years old and she can't walk down the street to the bus stop. And I'm like, well, that's a good reason, but it's, so some things don't look, aren't explained all the way on paper, but yes, this is all of our volunteers in transportation in the region. So that supplements about 80% of the transportation in the region is provided by volunteers.
Is it just DSS like giving you referrals, or we have a very small, probably smaller footprint than Orange County when it comes to community paramedicine?
Mhm.
Are you getting any referral from those agencies or departments?
Yeah, I'm actually partnered with Community Paramedicine. They have an MOU that I broker with Encompass so that they can share the wheelchair vehicles and use that for that program. And then we do get referrals from them and also the free clinic as well. We go to the Munch meetings and we try to push information out there. With Madison, it's like a conundrum, it's the chicken before the egg. Do you hand out information that there are rides before you hand out information that we need volunteers? Or volunteers sign up and then have no rides to give because no one signed up yet to get a ride? It's a quandary right now. I think with Madison, it's really about trying to engage with building a volunteer base there. Voltran, a few years ago, I proposed the Voltran organization, which was born out of Fauquier. It's a grassroots organization that was developed by the former DSS director, Mitty Wallace. And I proposed to that organization, you have a great model, you're serving Fauquier and Culpeper really, really well. Would you expand into Madison and into Orange? And they agreed. So now they serve technically the whole region, but Billy is their only, active volunteer in Madison so far. And they added him to the board to try and help build some of those relationships too. And so I think it's just more kind of building on to that relationship and trying to engage with the public. One of the things that is challenging about Madison is those third spaces. Where do people go when they're not at work and when they're not in school? Is it church? Is it, a club? And I'd said people, hey, a lot of people chat every morning at McDonald's. There's some older folks, there's some older folks at the diner. You can go there, you can chat. So it's really trying to find people at those communal spaces and kind of reach that target audience. So that's the hard part, but I think Mallory will now be working on some of kind of that target engagement and could definitely touch base with you and try and distribute some of that information out through your platform as well.
And one last thing, I didn't tell you how many questions I had. Madam Chair. So we're always looking for a creative way. I know that a lot of this is protected, so we don't share people's information when it comes to HIPAA, but we're always looking for creative ways of how they use those opioid funds that live at the state. And you're like, but we were part of the lawsuit.
Right.
So that may be an avenue our community paramedicine programs can work with you all to identify that, but that may be another way to turn some funding
Yes.
towards your program. So if you'd like to talk about that offline, I'd be.
Yeah, definitely. We have done a few demos as well to try and develop a couple of programs with Orange, with OAR, and trying to get people to substance abuse testing and things like that. So I think we could definitely do something like that. For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Kristen, I just wanted to say congratulations on the success of your program to you and your staff. I mean, it's really a phenomenal success story that you guys are the model program for all these different agencies all around the country. And I think the next step certainly would be some kind of recognition at the White House or Congress. There's nothing. Wait till that's finished and then you should get an invitation. It's just fantastic work. So thank you so much. I did have a quick question for Mallory. I just was kind of curious, what is the most successful strategy for increasing public awareness about the programs? Because I think most of us, are unaware of all the different things. In fact, I know some folks who have to get dialysis treatments, and transportation is always a big problem, right? And but here you guys provide this. So just kind of curious how the outreach works and what works best.
Sure. So as Kristen's already mentioned, I've just recently returned back to the commission. I've been here for about a month now, but we have started to try to identify those, particularly for finding volunteers, identifying those third spaces, like a group of retirees who regularly meet every month at Revelation Vineyard, something like that, like trying to maybe like sponsor one of their evenings at the winery and kind of go in and chat with them and see if they would be interested in participating as a volunteer with any of our partner organizations. So that's like one idea we have for volunteer recruitment. And then as for just like increasing the knowledge of the regional mobility center around the region, kind of just me being able to go out and attend any meetings or, like go to any public places where I can spread the word to anyone who may be unfamiliar with the program so that they are aware of it and they know that they can access that.
Okay.
The most success we've ever had has been through word of mouth. And we've invested in
that's
commercials
interesting.
and print materials and flyers and brochures and all the things, but really word of mouth through trusted sources. I think that's just our culture here. We have, if you told me about something that you tried and I know you, I'm like, well, I might give that a try, but if I saw it on a form, I may not be interested, but because you told me and I trust you, I would want to get involved. So I think that's where we are really trying to focus, also just trying to find those kind of community ambassadors.
Right. So just more person contact. Right. Well,
So
that's
I
really
will
good.
certainly be bopping around the region.
Keep up the great work. I think it's just a phenomenal success story. So thank you. Yeah, great work.
Appreciate it.
I did have one question on your timeline, the 2026, you had dialysis or special need. Now that I'm a volunteer, I'm interested in this kind of thing. How are you finding those customers and that kind of population?
They found us again through that word of mouth. We have a lot of individuals who have requested dialysis transportation. That has been an issue that has really ballooned over the last few years and become very significant. It's basically the third most requested trip. It's general transportation and medical trip, and then transportation to physical therapy, and then dialysis. And dialysis is a huge ask because there's a 3 or 4 hour time window that you need. It's very specific. There's no flexibility involved, and these people need it for their life. So it's very important. We tried a pilot project last year where we paid a contract with a specialized provider in Fauquier and in Bealton, and they provided transportation on a contract basis to dialysis individuals. And we did that specifically to try and get Fridays and Saturdays done because a lot of volunteers weren't volunteering for those days. We also refer back to Community Link Path Foundation when we have a particularly difficult case, like we have somebody who's maybe in Culpeper but wants to go to dialysis in Charlottesville, and you're like, oh, why are you going there? And I was assigned there. There's no more space in Culpeper, and so then our Community Link person will talk to them, try and figure out how we can get their site moved to something more local. Well, there is now then manageable. I can serve that with volunteers. So we have gone kind of up and down with the amount of dialysis that we provide because it's so significant and there's so many trips. There's 3 trips a week. So sometimes our nonprofits will say, hey, I need you to pause how many dialysis trips we're taking now because we have too many. We don't have enough volunteers. So that has been going up and down. I actually have searched across the country for a successful model for dialysis transportation, and there isn't one. I have been to several national conferences, and there have been dialysis presentations, but it's no one's got it solved. So we're kind of sitting here trying to think of new kind of creative strategic ways to help with that equation. one thing that I haven't really been able to crack is getting the dialysis centers to be a partner. The last national conference I went to, they had a state representative, a national representative from Fresenius there. And they talked a little bit about their community investment, and I asked outright, can you invest in transportation since your individuals need to get there? And they said that they referenced a law that basically they couldn't incentivize their patients with transportation because that would be competitive against DaVita, which is the other leader of dialysis vision. And so then that would be illegal to incentivize them in that way. And so I thought, well, could you give me the money and I'll incentivize them in a different way, kind of go around that. I just haven't been able to really crack that yet. But it is something that we're still actively focusing on.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I concur. This is amazing how successful you've been and your team. So thank you for what you're doing. Anyone else?
I heard Bilton come up twice in your presentation. They must be a high flyer with you.
They are. Bealton has a lot of individuals older adults. They have a more affordable living area for older adults in general. And I think we have a lot of customers that need dialysis in that area. And we tried that kind of micro transit model, and it wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't say it was not a success, but it wasn't really like, a glaring like this works here. We also did a microtransit model in Rappahannock, and we found a small nonprofit to manage it, and it's working really, really well through that different version of the model where as before it was kind of contracted out to another provider. Now it's running through a small nonprofit that knows the needs of the clients that are calling. They know all the nuances of when that person needs to get there and what are all the local challenges with that. And so I think that could be a successful model that we apply to the Bealton area and try again.
Yeah, so you earlier mentioned that your data was separated by zip code.
Mhm.
So Bealton is part of the Lee district as well as the town of Remington, so it's a combined number.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and anybody who wants more data, like for you, I can pull that, and anyone else who wants the data down to a zip code or a specific location, or a specific type of demographic, we have that. We collect a tremendous amount of information, and we go as far as to collect why people want to travel for medical. So that's why I know I have that breakdown of what type of appointment they went to. Dental and eye is also very high. But I have that because it paves the way for me in the future to have conversations with these types of providers and say, oh, I brought, 200 people to orthopedics office this year. Can you help? Can you give me a place in your parking lot to park a van? Can you give me some funding? Can you help this agency? Can you display our information? So we collect that for a lot of different reasons, but we have tremendous amount of information that we can share.
Great piece of presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good.
All right, moving into the consent agenda, there's 2 items. Anyone wishing to pull any of those items from the consent agenda? All right, if not, I'll take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Minutes and executive director's report.
Yes, thank you. Try to run through pretty quickly and actually have 3 kind of sub bullets on the agenda that I'll run through. First, just thank you to all of you that were able to join us for the annual meeting. The Regional Transportation Collaborative, their volunteer event was the night before. I think we both pledged, certainly Jessica and Mallory, who I think were at both of them, we pledged to not schedule those events back to back in the future. Planning agency, we probably should be prepared that, so. But yeah, so thank you to everybody for that came out to do card. Thank you to Mr. Weekly and his staff for kind of pointing us in that direction and, certainly welcoming us out there as a great location, beautiful night, and appreciate. Also want to thank Ms. Downs from Fauquier County for their basket, as well as the town of Culpeper for the basket that they donated for the door prize as well. And congratulations to Mayor Bolt for his leadership award.
Thank you. Town of Remington capitalized on that.
There was, 2 winners there, so.
3.
Was it?
Me and,
Oh, yourself, yeah, well, yourself
basket.
included, I was thinking of just the door prize. Yes,
Friends,
sir.
yeah.
As always, for that event, if anybody has comments, feedback, positive or negative, I'm always willing to hear that. At some point, once we get to the new year, we'll talk about next year. Orange County would be our host in terms of the rotation. So I'm looking at Supervisor Hale, and hopefully she will give us some direction between now and then. So again, thank you for that. Housing Summit that I reported on, that have been sort of reporting on for the last several months. We have a date, which is Friday, March 27th, 2026. The committee has asked, and we've got cost estimate from Airly as the host. We have a sponsorship request going into Virginia Housing by the end of the month. I anticipate with the estimated costs from Airly, which would be inclusive of food and obviously the event space and all of those things, that between the Virginia Housing sponsorship, Path Foundation, willingness to contribute, as well as registration fees, that this will, at minimum break even, but potentially will allow us some funding even beyond that. So I feel like in terms of any budget request, I'll return in December to the commission if I do feel like there's a need for the commission to contribute anything beyond in-kind staff time on this. But yeah, it's really good. And then I had a bullet point for building and space needs, and that's more of a just to kind of give you my initial thoughts on, again, with the mobility center. And Kristen didn't introduce, but Sandra Ojeda is back there, and Sheila Lamb, two of the mobility specialists. I certainly want to welcome both of them. And Carolina Mejia is online, is the third mobility specialist. So certainly grateful for them joining. And Kristen didn't mention, but the transition from Encompass as the contractor to in-house here at the commission, it was a fast 2 months, but I think we've come out the other end and are in a good space, and feel confident with where we're going with this mobility center. That said, with the space, we've managed to cram the three of them and Mallory into an office in the back part of the building that previously was housed those two people. They're kind of doing during the week, kind of staggering their in the office days as much as possible. But I do think we're sort of at a point with the building space here of both needing to do some renovations or repairs on the main part of the building, which has never had carpeting or other upgrades in the 25 years that we've been here. So we're sort of at a point where we have some, and I don't think decisions, but we have some kind of directions that I'm asking for your direction on, or will be in the future. At minimum, we need to do those maintenance upgrades and maintenance repairs. Beyond that, we could look at sort of renovating the entire 3,200 plus square feet. And then beyond that, I think the other thing would be starting to look at additional space, whether that be an entire office move or looking for additional space just in the case we need it for specific programs such as the mobility center. So I just kind of put that out there now. I know we've sort of talked about it at times, but I've sort of started to draft up. Here's kind of the decision tree of where we need to go and wanting some, again, direction, not today, but kind of moving forward from the commission in terms of what you'd like to see from me in the future.
Where's the building relative to our neighboring units? Are they filled now?
They are both, the one on this side of this wall is it's leased to Edward Jones, but it's filled. And then the one next to us, I think it sold maybe a year and a half ago. That has a similar medical provider in there. That's really what, aside from Edward Jones and Jones Group CPAs, this is really a medical office park at this point. But I think in terms of timing of finding one of those, I know that either of them would go back on the market in any immediate time frame. The other two items, and I'll be real quick on these. One, I as I did back in April, just included a very what I felt like was a very informative presentation from Hamilton Lombard at Weldon Cooper Center on past and fugitive graphic trends in Virginia that he gave to myself and my executive director colleagues with the other PDCs that earlier this month. Two things I wanted to highlight is one here on slide 3, when you see the growth amongst the planning district commissions, again, since 2000, we remain the third fastest growing in terms of percent growth since 2000. And that's something that certainly showed up between 2000 and 2010. But even with growth slowing over the last decade and, you know, kind of last 15 years or so, not as fast as it was then, still remain third behind our neighbors to the east, George Washington Regional Commission in North Virginia. I will note that Hamilton's presentation included our PDC as part of the Urban Crescent PDCs, and I raised my hand and said, I don't think a lot of people in my region are gonna like that designation, so maybe reconsider including us, or at least as you're referencing that. He said, yeah, that was the one that they went back and forth on it, I think just because of the tie-ins between Fredericksburg and you know, North Virginia. Well, I think, you know, made that decision to include us, but that was a minor thing in terms of some of the information they have. And then the other kind of data point I wanted to highlight was this one, the growth curves, or the kind of the projected growth. So what you see here is for all the PDCs across Virginia. The blue is sort of the growth from 2000 to 2025, and then the dashed kind of orange line is showing you the projected growth based on Wilman Cooper's numbers. And so you just sort of see those group Northern Shenandoah, which is Front Royal and Winchester area, Sells, Northern Virginia, George Washington Regional Commission, which is off the charts after, you know, 2030 or so in terms of their projections, not even staying on. You know, sort of show that trajectory, that growth rate, whereas, and then include also TJPDC and Richmond Regional in that, as well as Prater, which is Petersburg, but the others are fairly flat, or in some cases declining in terms of population projections. So I think that, you know, it's just something to, again, keep in the back of your mind as you're thinking through all the decisions that are coming up. And then the last piece was just this slide on aging, the aging population. Sorry, let's come back to this one, which really just shows, you know, again, across Virginia, we're all growing. Like I must have gone past it for the one for our region. There we go. So again, for Rappahannock-Rapidan region right here, you know, you're seeing the 2000, the blue line is the share of population at age 65 or over. And it's growing everywhere. Actually, in our region, it's grown a little bit less than Thomas Jefferson to the south, but again, continues to sort of see that increase. And then the last item that I wanted to share with you all, just that was included in the packet, was the one pager that has been developed by Hampton Roads PDC has taken the lead on this, and it's a request that will probably be going in, or, you know, again, kind of making that push for General Assembly funding for planning district commissions. You remember a couple of years ago, we made a request, and each PDC received an additional 25,000 allocation from the General Assembly. So that this year we received 115,000 in kind of discretionary money from the General Assembly. So the goal here, and that actually, if you look at the arrow here, since 2000, the adjusted for inflation is 56% less in terms of what we receive, and that's because of a pretty significant cut to PDC funding in 2007, 2008 during the housing crash. So again, there will be a effort from VA PDC, and likely what I would do is probably come back in December with a request for this board to endorse that request as it goes in. So just wanted to share that with you at this point of where that's standing, to get that graphic shortly. And happy to answer questions on any of those items or anything that I did not mention that was in my report.
All right, for your report. Going into old business, we have the standing item that I think I started last year or year before, I can't remember, regional broadband project status update. We had a little bit of a conversation outside. You want to talk about what's going on, and we're not 3 o'clock here?
I think we're status quo. There is some action, still looking at 2026 next year, so. Nothing new to report.
Anybody see anything exciting in fiber? Other than Orange and Madison?
Orange and Culpeper, as the news would report.
Yeah, we're hoping that works out. Think it will, so.
And
Yeah.
our provider did,
Someone that actually has
finally,
real service on the ground and been doing it the right way for a long time.
they're definitely a leader.
Yeah.
All Points did actually start yesterday with roadside last mile installation, so can't finish till you start, so good point in time.
I think we discovered 2 customers
You know,
in the whole county
nice.
out of our 4,000 and some that needed service from them, so.
Yeah.
We have 2 now. We had 1 for a long time, now we have 2, so.
but they're no longer a partner for us, so.
And it's understanding that Mr. Carr is no longer the CEO of All Points Broadband.
But he's now chairman of the board.
I think he was chair and CEO before.
Ah. Interesting.
So all problems that you've experienced through 2024 up to this point has been resolved? Because it was pretty exciting the last 18 months. I learned what to avoid. That's
One
why.
could say there's a methodical approach to deploying broadband, and the process that it takes to get from zero to actually doing something takes many years. Hopefully the duration of construction will be now through July 2026. Time will tell. What we know is that we really don't have any other suitors. And we did talk to FiberLink way back in the day, and it was just kind of too far to go. And we talked to Firefly back in the day, and it was too far for them to go. And so these were the only people on the ground. So we're gonna try to ride it to the end, one way or another.
We wish y'all well. We will say this, because I know a lot of stuff is sensitive to court and I'm not a lawyer, but infrastructure will be built towards our neighboring counties should something change. We'll have the fiber hut there off of Decapolis, which sounds like Roman, but it's off of Hoover Road. And they're going as far as north as Etlin.
Bring it.
In that area, so.
Yeah, we're hoping Firefly, they forget where the boundary is, but.
Yeah, so it's there. I mean, they had to overbuild back when Brightspeed was still saying they were gonna do stuff, and they thankfully bowed out. That's my personal opinion, what these companies should do when they can't deliver. But that network had to come from the Standardsville hub in Greene County to the Hoover Ridge hub in Madison County. And because they were overbuilding that area, when Brightspeed finally gave it up, they were able to deploy. Actually, those customers were supposed to be last in line. They were actually first in line because of that. So just no infrastructure may be there if that ever becomes plausible for your two communities.
Yeah, well, if you accidentally serve our citizens, I don't think anybody's gonna be upset.
There were some potential bead wars too.
Yes.
That were interesting to follow, so.
And we continue to follow BEAD. So in our case, All Points was awarded nearly all of our underserved, unserved, but we don't know the process with that after the 7-day comment period came in.
They got $2 million, All Points did, in BEAD awards in the state of Virginia.
2 billion.
2 million.
2 million.
Okay, more than that, they got 2 million passings, maybe.
No, they got $2 million to build in the state of Virginia, BEAD awards,
They got more than 2 million in Rappahannock County.
not 200 million.
There you go.
200 million, 200 million.
Yes.
So if I can ask a question of you guys. There's a lot of activity that's been taking place, for example, from Warrenton all the way into Culpeper County on 2915. And I've been watching it closely, simply because I travel that. And it seems like they make a run from Warrenton all the way to Culpeper, and then they come back and they're starting a second run and they go the same path. Is there multiple services does anybody have insight?
I'm sure.
Is it fiber optic?
VDOT could tell you who the permits are for, and we saw that on 211 between Warrenton and Rappahannock. That was a Comcast job, independent of any of this grant money. They are hardening their services probably for Cleverson's Corner area, et cetera.
They're tying, Amosville to Warrenton, so that's the 211 is done there. The 29 to 15, what you're seeing two providers. One is the Amazon data centers, they're tying all those together.
There you go.
And then the other stuff is, the power companies building their stuff. So that's what you're seeing there. So you're seeing two different companies doing work.
Okay.
But the 211 piece, that's Comcast tying the two counties together.
So one is making the pass, whoever was first, and then the other one is coming in behind and making their pass.
For coordination is far beyond anybody's capability.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone. In June, the commission authorized staff to release an RFP for legislative services procurement process has concluded. And we have a recommendation for a contract with Eldon James and Associates, Bateman Consulting. Patrick, additional details and you share.
Yeah, I think, that's really the summary. We went through the process. Want to thank, county administrators and many of the town managers for their support, through the process, but feel that we've got, I think we have an agreement that, as it says in the resolution and the memo, that, this is a one-year agreement. The RFP allows 4 additional one-year terms, but I think that will be something that we will evaluate on an annual basis, whether it makes sense or not. But I feel like in terms of the bids that we received and the proposals we received, this was easily the appropriate one and the best for the commission. So, yeah, that's really what I'm asking for, is the ability to execute that contract. I will say that I had a request from Orange County's deputy clerk today about, oh, we had this legislative platform last year. Is that something you can share? And I said, we're running a little behind, but I think if this does go forward with the resolution here, the goal will be certainly by the December commission meeting to have some form of a program legislative platform back for consideration. And I think the hope would be to streamline it a little bit from previous years and really do a deeper dive into what are the most important issues rather than kind of a super.
Any discussion? Okay, the request is to adopt the resolution authorizing the executive director to execute a contract for legislative services.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Let's see, as previously discussed, various issues surrounding transportation funding. Recently received a request from Thomas Jefferson PDC to consider endorsing a letter that you included. Its board of directors submitted to its regional delegation. Similarly, the Culpeper County Board raised concerns regarding transportation funding. Lead us in that discussion.
I can, and thank you. What we have in the packet is the letter that came from TJPDC that, as I said, they shared with their delegation and asked other planning districts to consider doing the same. And these are things we've talked about before, and actually we had a presentation from VDOT to our planners roundtable back earlier this year that really kind of underlined some of this information as well. I think I might have shared the slide with the commission, but the way that, construction funding is decreasing, has decreased, and with maintenance costs on VDOT maintained roads increasing, there's a greater likelihood that we're going to start to see money pulled from construction funding to cover those maintenance costs. And I think we've seen in this kind of the table that TJPDC put together, the lower amounts of funding available since Smart Scale began. Also seeing sort of the opposite in terms of funding requested, although the first FY18 round was higher than any of the others after. So again, that request from TJPDC is really to send something similar. I think that would go in line with the last agenda item also of making that a priority, even though the funding runs through Commonwealth Transportation Board in terms of appropriations. There's a significant impact from General Assembly, obviously. The other piece, and I appreciate Mr. McClearen for kind of walking me through what the Culpeper board was talking about, and they've obviously made use of revenue sharing funds to a significant way over the past 15 years plus, but have run into issues in terms of, I guess, revenue sharing needing to be on a quicker cycle. I know VDOT in the past has pushed it back to years 5 and 6 in the 6-year improvement program, which really makes it difficult, not just with inflation costs, but also just being able to plan out. And revenue sharing is also one that is a 50-50 match. And so the goal would be if you put in 50% locally, you have a little bit more control over some of that. So I guess the reason I added this to the agenda and then looking for direction is, A, would the commission be opposed to endorsing a letter similar to the one that TJPDC provided? Or would we also want to broaden that out to offer support to what Culpeper County is asking for the revenue sharing side, beyond just the more general transportation budget? So happy to take comment or to be told, man, don't worry about it.
I don't see the letter doing anything. I mean, it doesn't say anything, just please fund transportation.
Right.
It's just not gonna get read.
Yeah, ours is gonna be a little more specific as far as the timing goes for revenue sharing.
I think that makes perfect sense,
Yeah.
and if I'm the state, and I'm not funding smart scale in a predictable way, then localities are more likely to
Yeah,
maybe lean forward and take it on the chin and do it themselves 50% and use revenue sharing. So if you can have a more predictable pathway for revenue sharing, it takes pressure off smart scale.
that's kind of the point, Gary, that our, at least our board has been following, and they see it as an investment for Culpeper. And, $10 million every 2 years is pretty significant for Culpeper, so.
Yeah.
And they've been doing that faithfully for a number of cycles, and we have not gotten all that every cycle. But pretty close. But when it goes from a 2-year cycle to basically a 4-year cycle, I mean, you're never gonna have enough money, to be able to complete the project, so.
You can have all our money.
Yeah.
We're not going into the smart scale or revenue sharing pot.
Yeah. So that's kind of the approach, is just trying to rein that back in, especially if the localities are willing to come to the table. With local dollars, and actually get projects done, so. We'll see.
I certainly endorse commission stance relative to revenue sharing. We want to throw some general, hey, fund smart scale too in there, as long as it doesn't water down the main purpose.
But the state's gonna flip and put a lot more maintenance. Some of our rural road issues will get taken care of.
Yeah, right.
Because
I don't think it's
part of the
putting more money
problem,
into
Yeah.
part of the problem that got us into some of our projects was because they're not maintaining roads.
Yeah, but a state of good repair is one of the first scrapes at the revenue source, and so as that continues to grow, there's less available for the other buckets that are discretionary, so.
We can get some shoulders back on a couple of roads, we'll be in good shape.
Yeah.
So it sounds like to me, if I can kind of summarize, potentially, support for both of these with the revenue sharing request from Culpeper receiving, a little bit more support, but I think probably could be wrapped into legislative program rather than a specific letter at this point. It maybe turns into something different in the future.
Yeah, and I don't even know if this is bill driven, so it's just CTV item.
It is,
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree. I don't know that General Assembly, I mean, yeah, they have some oversight, but it's not something where unless you're asking them to put pressure on CTV and I don't even know how much they interact with our CTV representative who's Louvaina County maybe. So yeah, I would agree with.
All right, moving into new business.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. I had a question for Patrick.
Yes, sure.
This information about reinvesting in our PDCs, I was just kind of curious, that's rather dismaying information that the funding has decreased. And I was just kind of curious, are we doing something to try to address that? Are we actively lobbying Richmond to restore funding, or?
So the goal is, and this is, sort of in the process right now. So VAPDC and the graphics were developed by Hampton Roads PDC, but what VAPDC is, as a group of all 21 of us, is proposing is a budget request or budget amendment that would go in. We've done that before, and typically what happens is you put in a high number and it gets whittled down, and if you get anything like the other year, I think the request originally started as, I guess it was 3 years ago, started as 150,000 per PDC and got whittled down to 25 per PDC per year, which is not, we won't turn it away, but it wasn't, what we asked for. I think really the request this year is going to be something similar. But yeah, that is the goal, is to restore some of that lost funding because of the cuts that happened, almost 20 years ago. And just haven't been restored in any meaningful way.
And do we have support from our local legislators?
So part of the goal here would be, yes, I think we probably would have from some of the local legislators. I think it'll be as we develop a regional platform, but also have those conversations. I think in some cases it's education about the role that the commission plays and what those funds, how they would benefit local communities in the region at large. So, I think that would be something as this gets developed, I will come back in December and have, more information in terms of what.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good.
I'm sorry.
No, I just think it's very concerning. I think that we can have a tremendous impact on positive impact on our communities and to see that the funding is being slashed, and even when we're requesting an increase, to have that fall
Right.
on deaf ears, I think that's very concerning.
That
You know.
specifically recently, the state has tasked the PDCs to take a coordinating role in several major
Yeah,
programs.
That's right.
And so should be able to draw a line between those two things.
And I think that this kind of bullet point right here about supporting key state agencies, I think what we're seeing is the agencies are making that request and asking for support, you know, whether with a decent amount of money or not. And I think kind of bridging that gap between the agencies and sometimes the secretaries making the request. And there's been essentially it's sort of one of the business part of the process.
Okay, all right, sounds good, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
did we get the direction? Did you get what you needed on the transportation part?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of approaching it, but I think what I heard is that we don't necessarily need a letter immediately, but as part of legislative,
Okay,
that can kind of continue. I think that Mr. Curry's point, the general transportation has always been included as, yeah, we support funding for transportation at the amount needed. But it's never really been something where we've taken that thing sort of, you know, stance or non-stance that TJPC communicated in the letter.
all right, thank you.
Going back to the FY 2026 funding to the Department of Environmental Quality.
I'll be brief here. There was I think as I shared back at the August meeting, we did have a first year of the water supply planning funding of $8,800. We had a wrap-up meeting for the 90-day period of which we did some initial kind of data collection and research, had a meeting with the designees from each locality and each water authority within the region, water and wastewater authority within the region back early September. And just kind of gave an update as well as shared information on what we're going to be doing. The second round of funding is available now and the application is due Friday. It's a little bit more money. It's instead of $8,800, it's $9,400, I think. So you'll get an extra $600. We do have a scope of work largely that we continue the work that we started, but also to meet some of the code requirements in terms of developing how are we incorporating not just local government and water authority, but engaging public and other stakeholders that are outlined and mandated as part of the regulatory requirement. Will be one of the things we do this time. What I would say is I think in August, I did share that there was a request going up through Department of Environmental Quality to push for money in the water supply in the upcoming budget. My understanding is that made it out of DEQ in terms of being something that Director Roldan supported. But my understanding is it did not make it out of the Secretary of Natural Resources, I guess, as a recommendation for the governor's budget. So we anticipate that to be another budget amendment request where we will go in and ask for there's a real cost here in terms of what's going to be required to complete these water supply plans. And without the state providing that funding, it becomes an unfunded mandate for localities and everybody else to figure out how to fund it. So more information on that, but we hope to begin the second round of work probably after the New Year's. I think the timeline for DEQ, which is also a bit of a frustration in terms of the break of about 3 or 4 months in terms of that grant funding being available. Certainly we're spending some staff time, but we're not allocating a lot of time to it in the break period here in between those 2 grants. So
How was the reporting for the first tranche?
not difficult. You know, I think the biggest frustration we had is that this division in DEQ uses Excel as their for everything rather than, you know, some other form, but that's a minor, you know, complaint. But they did have questions for us that we need to go back and do a lot of work on. So. But we would request the authorization to submit that second FY 26.
Well, I'll make a motion for the requested action to authorize staff to submit the FY 26 water supply planning grant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Who was the second? This one, thank you.
The one with no water fountain? I wish that were the case.
And Supervisor Broadus and I sit in on the River Basin Commission, and every discussion we have there, like, we're saying yes to counties taking a certain amount of waters for different needs, and nobody truly knows how much water there is in the first place. So it's a pretty scary conversation in my mind.
I take it you have your share of water problem.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
LOW. Yeah.
Low.
Yeah, we, back in 2024, we had a major water crisis where we had over 5,000 people without water. And that just kind of, there was a water issue before that, but it just brought a lot of attention to
Is
it.
that because of drought or?
No, we had an
Oh, that's-
incident with, the water that was coming through RSA.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a
We
problem.
had a do not drink and a do not use water advisory for numerous days while we tried to figure out what was going on with the water. There was a bad smell and a film in the water. What it ended up being was a catastrophic, failure of motors and generators. But the, food grade mineral oil within the motor spilled into the water supply. And so it caused a bad smell and
Like a,
yeah, so it's very scary. And very concerning,
Yeah.
so people were without water for quite some time.
well, glad it's not me.
But it just brought attention to the fact that we need a backup to our water supply
Right.
in that area.
So you are managing through a second backup? plan?
We do not have a backup to our water supply for our.
So that's
Needs
what
to
you're
be
working
working
on, just paying attention to that now. Okay, got it. I'll pay attention to that.
Never said.
All
In a
right,
service district.
next, Patrick, I think we have an update on the 2026 audit.
Very, very brief update. We do have initial numbers that have come in from the auditor. Looks positive as we've been, in recent years in terms of, having a surplus for the fiscal year. And, all of that. We don't have a draft audit in full yet for me to share, but my goal would be to hopefully by the end of this month, have something that I would send out to all of you by email, and then in December, be able to answer questions and have that audit approved. But that's the short update at this point. Been going back and forth on some of the numbers to send, and that's it for now.
All right, and next is the call from orientation that the commissioner is asked to contribute to within the bylaws is an annual review of the executive director. When was the last one? Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So, the executive committee discussed this in August and asked for, a review tool to be shared. Is that included in this?
So in the packet, I have a couple of paper copies, just if people wanted to see them, but one question I have.
Okay. Worked with Patrick to develop, a review form based on, other regional commissions and ICMA templates. We are suggesting a timeline where the review form would be sent electronically after this meeting and returned to the chair and the fiscal officer, Terry Sneed, the commission by email before November 19th. And with a closed session scheduled for December meeting for discussion and any action required. I did ask Patrick if he thought there would be any problem with the holidays upcoming, and he thought we were all very responsible and we could get this done in time before the end of the year.
Such a positive thinker.
I know who to mark on. It doesn't return, not that I would know who's returning.
And
So you're saying each commissioner will have an opportunity to review?
That would be I think that would be the goal that we talked about.
Yeah.
I think the questions I had that, in talking with the chair would be, right now, what we have is a fillable PDF form. I can, I'm happy to set it up as a, Word document or as a, fill out a online form. But I think we've got the one form now. If anybody gets it and says, I don't know what to do with this, or give me something else, we're happy to accommodate that. The other question that I would have, and I think in talking with the chair, was, would the commission prefer the executive committee to have a meeting to review all that beforehand and make recommendation, or would the commission prefer to have a full board closed session where that discussion happens then? I think would be the only other sort of, kind of timeline thing that would potentially impact this.
Did the executive committee discuss that question?
I don't think we've discussed whether we're going to receive them yet.
It seems to me to be right in line with the executive committees.
And that seems appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm thinking you have all these comments, which I'm sure they're gonna be all raving comments, but you need to consolidate that.
It's okay if they're not, but.
We're gonna put them all in one document.
I'm gonna make a comment about you wearing a tie all the time.
All right, so the executive committee will
Stuff.
review all of the returns and then come up with a basically consensus on the information and bring it to the December meeting that later.
I think that
Yeah.
makes sense to me, yeah.
Awesome.
And let's see, executive director review process, that was that. Finally, the commission needs to appoint a nominating committee to identify a slate of officers for terms beginning March 1st. All officers are eligible for reappointments, but we have lost 2 at-large executive committee members during the year, so we need to fill those roles. Typically, this has been delegated to the executive committee, but if anybody has other suggestions, how we fill those 2.
I'd say if you want to volunteer so you can ensure that you don't get a phone call to join.
Or if you're interested.
Does that require action or just consensus to
I think
do what we've been
it's
doing?
probably good enough to tell the executive committee to include that on their next meeting.
Okay. Good. Leave it with the appointment of the nominating committee.
Yep.
All right, we have no closed session, regional roundtable. Everybody ready? McLaren?
Sure. Culpeper's busy still. Dirt turning for some data centers, which is exciting. We're waiting on getting some bridge power to a couple facilities, so they'll be able to get started, and the rest of the real power upgrades will come in a couple years. But those projects are moving. They're moving on Route 329 next to CTEC, Germana. That project's moving forward. So that's good news. A lot of residential projects are still moving forward. Clevenger's has slowed down a little bit.
Is that's waiting to hit the metrics for?
Pretty much they're having,
Commercial?
yeah, they're gonna have to find some commercial to kind of move forward there. You're gonna see other homes out there, it just won't be Clevenger's. So there's another 100 waiting in the wings next door and another 50 that are carved out that weren't part of the original PUD. So 150 homes, people think it's still Clevenger's, but it's not officially. Other than that, I mean, things are moving. So.
Madam Chair, so I apologize, we have to boogie.
Okay, anything you want people to hear real quick?
No, not at all.
Okay.
There's nothing going on.
I'll report for him.
I don't want to step over you if you have anything for the.
For the town of Madison, we've been really busy. We're in the process of updating our whole zoning ordinance to make it a little bit easier. We're in the process of streamlining all the application process and things to our website is horrible and has been for a while. And that's going to be one of our goals now, to get everything uploaded on that. And I think they probably have every piece of paper they've ever had since it opened. So we're in the process of digitizing and getting rid of things and trying to get in the correct century here. So a lot going on.
All right. Mr.
Well, I
Pope.
was hoping for a bigger audience. But yeah, thank you very much for those of you that are here for the vote of confidence and leadership award. It was quite a surprise to me. Being the short time that I've been part of the board. The evening was spectacular. I want to also thank you, secondly important, if not equal, for the wing person that you assigned to me via vote, Brian Hoffman, for the Citizen Award. He's a good friend and a great employee for the Friends of the Rappahannock. I did want to comment on Patrick's pun about my phone calls. I was pretty diligent with them. I wanted to just take a minute to kind of give you guys some insight as to how I evolved into where I am. we had lost our mayor back in 2020, either early or 19 late. And I had a couple of council members and our town administrator at that point solicit me to backfill his term. He had 8 months remaining. So obviously I agreed to do it. And I've been the mayor of the town of Remington for those 8 months. And I was assigned to come up with a program or a plan to get the town of Remington to be able to recover from 30 years of not progressing any place. So I agreed to do the 8 months. And I made a lot of partnerships, 23 as a matter of fact, in the 8 months, from the federal government all the way down to local government and nonprofit organizations. So it took a lot of phone calls and a lot of diligence and making those phone calls and not getting return calls and no leaving a message the second time, just letting them know that I'm calling and waiting. And that kind of circled around the development of the revitalization for the town of Remington to be a destination. When I rolled that out to the council, and it was about 6 months into the 8 months, I had 20 of the partnerships in the council chamber. Patrick was one of them, for a specific reason. And it took me 2 hours to roll the program out to the town council so that I was assured that they had some portion of a vision of what this meant being a destination. And I did a lot of riding around to all you guys, county and the towns in the county, to really get an understanding and a feeling as to what is the definition of a destination. And we have some, did then, do have a few more now, like we don't have a brewery, I'm still looking for one. But anyways, there was 20 partnerships that showed up to this rollout. Patrick saved the day by, at the end of the discussion, offering up a $60,000 grant to do a feasibility study. And I recall one of the council members looked around the table and said, it's kind of hard to walk away from $60,000. And it took about 6 months to do the feasibility study. They captured the vision of what the town of Remington could be potentially. And we're 5 years later, about 12 months ago, probably it was the second new council that I've had in the remaining 2 elections that I've gone through. So we're moving forward with the overall plan finally. I'm excited about it, obviously. But I wanted to read something to you. I did and this is what kind of motivated me. Julie Bolthouse was a big inspiration from a PEC perspective. But this was, what I'm going to read you, is something that really gave me the insight to do this. Because the town of Remington actually was a very good commerce in 1927. And I did a monthly newsletter for the community. It's from the desk of Mayor Polk. It's kind of like the fireside chat back in the day. And my intentions was to report on the progression that the town of Remington was making while I was mayor, but I found out nobody was reading. Which is part of the outreach dilemma of getting the citizens' attention, and we probably all experience a lack of. But in 1927, geography supplement produced by Fauquier County School Board and the University of Virginia described Remington as having an accredited high school in the town. There is a picture in the town hall, if you want to see that, that's pretty impressive. Mind you, this is in 1927. Accredited high school in the town, a bank, flour and corn mills, lumber factory, lumber dealers, 2 garages, a drugstore, 3 grocery stores, can you figure that one? A bakery, a tile factory, an electric light plant. So we were self-sustained. Feed stores, meat markets, a tanner, jeweler, a shoe shop, and a restaurant and a pool hall. And when I found this, and I was writing it, my response was, what's wrong here? It appears in 1927, there were more choices than we currently have in 2021. How can that be nearly 100 years later? 125 years ago or thereabouts, the town was incorporated in 1890, March 3rd. So from 1890 to March 3rd, they were able to be, this is a hell of a large commerce that the town of Remington had. So what happened to it? Fire. We had 3 major fires that burnt the town out, and they never built back. So that's why I think the revitalization program is so important, and I brought it up in the awards dinner that the reason we get 100% grants, no match required. I brought it up in the meeting, and I got a lot of questions about it after I brought this up from thanking everybody for the award. But our LMI rating is very, very important to the Remington community, and that is the reason that we're able to get 100% grants, no match required. The VHCD grant that was promised to us is $10.25 million, and it's 100% no match required grant. It's pretty impressive, and an extreme pleasure for that reason to be a Main Street program. So took a lot of phone calls to your mayor, bringing it up, Patrick. I was busy on the telephone. I was burning it up. But thank you all for the opportunity of having that such an important award. Thank you.
Well, I can't top that. But I can say that we continue to be busy in Orange County. Some of the hot topics right now are, we still have the Berkeley group working on our zoning ordinance. They're taking another stab at it. As you might recall from my last report out on that, they brought it back to us in the spring and it was not good. The point where we told them to throw it away and start over. So they're working on that. In parallel to that, the Board of Supervisors is working on creating new districts, new zoning districts, and I guess you could say updating existing zoning districts. We successfully completed the first draft of our technology zone district and the rural service district. And sent those back to the planning commission to take a stab at those and go through that process. So very excited about those 2 zoning districts, and now we're getting ready to really tackle what I think is gonna be the more heavy lift with Ag 1, Ag 2, and rural residential. So that's gonna be fun. So we're working on those. We had a work session, I guess it was last week, and that will probably be our last work session until after the new year. But the zoning and property rights and subdivision, acreage and all that stuff is a really hot topic right now. So That's what we've been working on primarily as far as work session and extra work. And then your normal day-to-day stuff. I'm having a hard time thinking of what else, because that's been at the top of the list, but we've been busy.
Excellent.
So the town of Orange, we're actively interviewing for the town manager role, so if you know anybody, have them put their resume in, we'd love to interview them. It's going well, we've got about 25 people that have applied, so good turnout there. We're in the final stages of our water tank replacement, they're putting in the liner, they started this week to reline that. We also approved the water tank and the water station treatment center to be able to software, we tie them together now, so the water plant can see how much water is in the tank. So if something is overflowing or is low, they can physically adjust it, turn the pumps back on and fill it back up, so the town doesn't lose pressure. And then the final thing, we've got about 400 meters left in our water meter replacement. The only caveat to that, it's a great system. Hey, it's the people that sold it to us, they did a great job selling it to us. They no meter readers anymore, it's wireless. The only thing I gotta say is get the extended battery life, because 10 years, the batteries go dead and every meter has to be replaced again. You can't replace the batteries. So, kind of probably should have, known a little bit about that. And it's very, very costly to replace them all again. So 10 years, we'll be doing it again. It's about a 10 to 15-year lifespan, and that depends on how cold it gets, how warm it gets. It just depends on, so. But it does show everything. If you flush your toilet in the middle of the night, they can see that house and they can see that that toilet was flushed in the middle of the night. That's how minute, I mean,
They can see
they can see.
what looks like a leak too.
Yes, it saved a lot of people money, because we call people, say, hey, every hour for 2 minutes, your toilet is turning on all night long. And it's a leak, so it's safe, but it does capture every bit of water where we were losing water rate and money before. We don't lose money anymore. It shows every drop that goes through that meter, so.
I thought you were gonna say that when Amazon cloud server goes down, the water meter.
Not yet. And that's about it for the town, so.
Just a comment with that, I don't know how yours compares to the one we have, but the suppliers love to have the read update very quickly so you can see all of that data, but that's a direct correlation to your battery life. We didn't need that data that quickly, at least with ours, so we cut that down and that extends the battery life.
So you're hourly or
Huh?
what do you now?
I think we read every 4 hours, I think. I think they were doing it every 2 hours.
So we need to.
So they may have moved it even further
Yeah.
than that.
We have it
Quite
every
frankly,
hour, so we need to definitely.
Well, back in the day, you got a monthly mechanical reading. So,
yes, it's kind of a balancing act as to what you're trying to do with it, so.
Your meter is your cash register. Every utility person knows that. So, as long as your effort is meter replacement. Madison County, I won't prolong it. We've already talked broadband, so we'll move past that. Neat park initiative going on right now at Hoover Ridge. That's about 180 acres that the county owns. About 5 acres right now being developed. It's been a little bit of a slow process, but you gotta let the funding come in. I know PRA would like to just let's get it all done at one time, but you can't sign a contract unless you have money in the bank. So we've started with putting in, some hardscaping. We'll have some asphalt, sidewalks are going in now. So we're gonna move roller hockey. That was the only sport that is not located, essentially located. So hopefully sometime by next summer or maybe the following year, we're gonna mimic Rockwater Park. We'll have a splash pad. It seems like we love to do a pool, but small steps as you go along. But it'll be neat for the community. It's one of the things that I haven't heard of one complaint. I think the county up front put almost $1 million in it between engineering and earthwork and so forth. Normally you spend a penny, we hear everything. But this is good for the community. We think if it's all demographics, whether you're a walker, there's a lot of frisbee golf. I must be missing out. That's probably the number one activity. But it's good, right? You can see where your money goes to other than transfer station or other public safety. So that's one of our primary things. Tyler Munis, I don't know how many of you have switched ERPs or looking that way. We've gone through some migrations of our AP and payroll and time and attendance, those are good things, but still frustrating trying to bring our, I think they don't call it citizen self-service anymore. I guess it's resident access. It's basically where your citizens or contractors can go online, pay for your permits, do all that. We still do it the old ways. We have some migration issues with our parcel, which they uploaded. They want to charge me a fee again. I'm not fond of paying for things twice. Hope to get that done soon because we believe that'll provide great customer service and maybe lighten some of that manual labor that generally happens in the permitting office. So there's some of our initial things. We have elections like other communities, but that's up to the electorate to decide who they want to govern. We carry out those missions. So at some point too, we'll look at our zoning ordinance. I'm not sure who will look to task. We've really been reactive over the years and just trying to make sure things we codified has that state enabling statute. But we are lacking there, but you know, one day at a time. So.
Follow on zoning, Rapport finally decided to fall in line with the 2015 Supreme Court ruling on Reed versus Town of Gilbert, so our signed ordinance is updated. Took a little while. They did just update the subdivision ordinance to recognize the changes last year for the designated agent, so that got done. And so we keep picking away at little bits and parts of it after abandoning the big full redo.
Yeah.
Courthouse, we're just deciding still whether we want to do a project or not.
I think that's gonna be decided for us if we don't make our own decision.
Yeah, I've had some conversations with judges, so don't be surprised if you hear from us. Oh, fall art tour, first weekend in November, coming up. Pretty cool event. Go check out a bunch of artists' homes and their personal studios and stuff.
It's very nice, and I think there's probably 1,000 people that come in over the weekend to, it's really grown over the years. It's great.
Did you say artists?
Yeah, they basically there's a central location, but most of these artists have home studios, and you basically are going visiting their home studio, oftentimes walking through their home.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you get a map and you get to choose where you want to go, and then you get to the road and there's a sign that says artist 22 is
Down
down
that
there.
road? Okay, if you say so.
You know, it's pretty interesting. Excuse me. Rachel, our town administrator, she came up with this thing where local artists, and she instrumented all of this herself, but she had local artists bring in art to the retail shops on Main Street.
Yeah.
Is that a concept so you guys see a concept like that?
Well, I used to do it in my government building. We didn't have it for sale, but we told people where it was and put it on our main halls in our government building.
Yeah, this was all to promote the retail shops, but in parallel to that, obviously, the artists themselves, because they're setting up in all these retail shops. So it got people to come visit the retail shops that they typically haven't been coming to see. And then to see the art as well. It's pretty cool.
Helped
Had a
our
good
building
turnout.
be a little less sterile, just corridors and nothing.
Yeah.
All right, so zoning ordinance, the town as well, our zoning ordinance hadn't had a full update since probably about the time I was born. Council this past month, or this month, adopted the Unified Development Ordinance, so I was surprised that it passed, but it finally got passed after probably about 100 public meetings that our planning director did with, or made himself available for citizens and everybody else, so he definitely earned his pay for doing that. Seems like agreements after agreements this past year for us. We did a water services agreement. That was to allow us to use our wastewater for cooling for the data center. That project is now about 90% design complete. We're anticipating being ready by Christmas to start advertising that project if the developer's ready to do so. I think he is. I think they're planning on moving some dirt first quarter of next year. We are taking to a special council meeting next week, premise agreement. That was agreement between us and Dominion and stack the data center developers there as well, but where we'll be turning over the data center area that's currently in our service territory over to Dominion to serve. That seemed to make sense since each building uses more power than the power in the town, and it seemed very risky for us to serve that ourselves. Council gave me the authority to do that agreement about 2 years ago, and we've kind of looked at every different angle, from providing them ourselves to doing it with Dominion to doing it with Dominion and REC. But we decided to do it with Dominion. And along with that, and what kind of slowed things down is we required them to execute a minimum revenue agreement with us. So in case they ended up with non-tax paying entities in there, we would still get paid. So both of those agreements will be going to council. So that was kind of a new one for them. And when I first mentioned that that's what we needed, there was a lot of squirming in the chairs on the other side of the Zoom call, but they finally came around. But it took us a little while to get through that. So once they played ball, that's why we created a special meeting.
And there's
Basically trying to train them. If you do what we want, then we'll work quickly for you. If you don't do what we want, we turn into a big rock and we just sit around.
So that will have no operational responsibility for you at all.
We have no operation.
You just sit back and let the minimum amount of money flow.
Which hopefully it'll be a taxable entity and it'll
Yeah.
be more money than that.
Right.
But yeah, but it's still significant with
Yeah.
$1.5 million per billion, and they're targeted for 13 buildings. That's 19.5 million per year for 15 years.
Is that minimum revenue threshold regardless of the buildings it's taken or not? Cause I know Loudon, they're waiting for power. Some of these buildings go up, there's nothing else.
Once we give the certificate to operate for the first building that starts, and then as each certificate operate starts, then it's a guaranteed income. So if it sits there and is vacant, or if they just have one computer in it, then they pay $1.5 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
These guys have big.
That's a deal we need, a project that never happens.
Yes.
These folks have really big pockets.
Yeah.
When you throw out something crazy like that, and after the squirming by some of them, and then the comment you get back is, well, I guess everybody's got to eat. That kind of tells you where they're playing.
No.
Maybe it should have been 2 million per building.
Yeah. Get that technology district done.
Yeah,
But I'm hoping that's the last agreement that I have to do for the next little while. It's been a lot of negotiate.
Good for you.
That's the
Good for the call.
big things that we're working on right now.
Chris, your EDC team, I don't know, I guess because y'all have a good combined effort between county and town. There was some recent awards. I saw that your economic development team was recognized. I think they were international awards, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bravo
Paige from,
to.
Paige on the town side, and then Brian and Wynonna on the county side, yeah.
Congratulations to both of your teams.
Yeah, no, they're doing good. It's nice with them working in the same building, working together.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything other than what Mr. Curry said, although I do have 2 questions. Is anybody looking at verticulture where you actually grow up?
We would love to have it. We just don't have the natural gas nearby.
Is that what it is?
Well, I mean, Vienna's doing that model. Some people, you have one in your community for years that, do it in water trays, but definitely if you look at, I'm sure you probably talked to Louisa County.
I have not yet, no.
Well, I think it's Better Farms, I think so over there. Andy Wade would be a good one to talk to.
Is
Chris, a
it
good
a
one.
heat problem then for the gas?
We had I don't know if you were there at that meeting or not, Sam. They invite businesses to come in at Central Virginia Economic Partnership, and the gentleman there, Patrick, I don't remember his name, I think for Better Farms. We asked, all right, if not natural gas, can you do a tank farm, LNG? And they really like the natural gas because LNG, they feel is volatile based on markets. And a tank farm, it would be a lot of cost. So we would love to have it because we think agricultural communities, right? You already got all this A1 zone property.
Yep.
But we just haven't been able to land one. Primarily, we believe because of the natural gas.
That's why you see the ones on Route 3 in Culpeper, there's a natural gas line right there.
Okay.
So that's why they're there.
So we
That's
could
why
have
they've
building
expanded
which goes to
recently
natural
to-
No
gas.
natural gas in Rappahannock.
Yeah.
Just fine, none,
Yeah.
not even at the
Zero.
transmission.
Wouldn't let us dig to find out.
Yeah, it's next to the non-existent rail line.
The other question, because we're going to be updating our old courthouse as well, I'm wondering if anybody hired grant writers or if you have them internally that you wrote when you were updating any of your older buildings, how you went through that.
We have a grant writer, a special projects person, but to my knowledge, she hasn't focused on anything with that, so. I don't know if the town has on your end.
Maybe,
Chris.
maybe Warrington.
Or does some for us.
Yeah,
You know, it's kind of a fuck here what they're doing with the hotel and all that, but
Well, we did not, when we went, I mean, you've heard our tobacco, we warned you against that. But maybe even if they're not in this district, maybe give Kathy Sheriff a call over in Greene County. She's
Okay.
county administrator there. They have a grant writer. I don't know if they've done anything for courts. But I'm sure they've written some for maybe a sheriff's office or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just feeling positive because you talked about the courthouse might be available.
I don't think we have anybody in Orange, but I'll check for you.
Thank you. So I suspect it's kind of a specialty grant writer, not just a general,
Yeah,
with it being 1834 architecture and like,
yeah.
All right,
Mary Root. You know Mary Root?
I don't think so.
She's Remington Community Partnership, nonprofit organization right there in town. I can give you a contact number right there.
Okay.
But
She
when it,
is very historic oriented. She just recently completed the exterior of our railroad depot in town. But she's done a lot of historical structures, old churches, everything. Let me get your numbers.
Thank you.
Four zero, 439, 2363.
2360.
And she's wrote a ton of grants.
Awesome, thank you. All right, have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.